This video is sponsored by Squarespace. It can be easy to blindly trust the image on the back of your camera, thinking all of your shots are perfectly exposed, only to get home and find out you've got clipped highlights and unrecoverable details in the shadows. This might have happened because you were using the wrong metering mode. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use each metering mode and when to use them so you get the perfect exposure in every single shot. And if you want to learn more about street photography, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're currently on the road to 70,000 subscribers and it'd be great to have you along. If you're not already familiar with your light meter, let's have a quick refresher. This is an example of a light meter. In my case, I'm shooting on Sony, so I'm going to be using this specific light meter for all of our examples. Your light meter is like your exposure compass, guiding you in the right direction for the right exposure, with 0 being the target perfect exposure. When it's pointing to the left, your image is underexposed, so you need to increase exposure. But it can also point too far to the right, meaning the image is overexposed, so then we need to decrease our exposure.
I still don't understand this light meter. Underexposed, overexposed. So that's the way I should go. We're at 0.
Your camera's light meter only measures light, so it doesn't take any color into account. So it doesn't matter how saturated your image is, only the brightness of your image. So whether you're shooting in color or black and white, your camera is actually measuring light in the exact same way. And camera brands use this ideal brightness of being 18% grey to measure the perfect level of ideal brightness. You may recognize this 18% grey from color charts when you're calibrating for white balance between different cameras. So your camera's light meter is always trying to guide you towards this perfect level of 18% grey as the ideal brightness being 0 in the center of your light meter. We have the option to control our exposure in either automatic modes or in manual mode. When we're controlling our exposure in automatic mode, we're actually setting the light meter to where we want it to expose for. Do we want it to be at exactly 0, or do we want to have +1 stop, -1 stop, or an increment along the way? And actually the camera takes care of changing our settings to be able to meet this target exposure. Whereas when we're in manual exposure, this is actually acting much more like a compass, trying to guide you from one end of the light meter to the other.
I still can't get that perfect exposure. I've only been using my shutter speed this whole time. I could have been using my f-stop. If only this was as easy as making a website with Squarespace.
If you don't have a website for your photography, you are missing out. It's your unique home on the internet for your fans to enjoy and support your work. Squarespace removes all of the headaches. You can even choose to create a fully custom website with Blueprint AI, tailored to your site and personality. You can update your fans easily via an email newsletter using Squarespace's email campaign tools. You can write, publish, and view your analytics all within your Squarespace dashboard. Try Squarespace for free today at squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/GeorgeHolden to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Let's kick off our metering modes with the usual suspect. No, not you, Kevin Spacey. I'm obviously talking about evaluative metering. You may recognize this symbol as evaluative metering. This is often the default setting on any camera for exposing the entire frame. Evaluative metering actually takes into consideration the overall brightness of different parts of the image, the brightness of the subject, the brightness of the sky, and tries to make the best judgment to keep everything more evenly exposed. Center-weighted metering actually focuses on the center of the frame, as the name might suggest. And this is actually very useful when you are exposing for one central subject and you want to prioritize them over anything else in the background that might have brightness changing quite often. I've in fact used this a lot of the time when framing up interviews in video. It's better to prioritize the main subject in case things in the background are changing that could affect the metering for the overall image. A great way to use center-weighted metering is to point your camera at your subject and use that to measure the exposure, and then point the camera at the background to get an idea of the exposure of the background. So say if you want to have your main subject exposed at 0, and then your background is at +1 to +2, then at least you know that you can actually bring down the background in post to have both of them nicely exposed. Then we have spot metering. And spot metering also measures a much smaller part of the frame, similar to center weighted metering, but actually this is a spot that you can set yourself, or it may actually follow around your autofocus point or where you are currently setting your focus. And this can be especially useful if you are focusing on a fast moving subject that has more complex exposure characteristics. This could be someone wearing a brightly contrasting outfit, for example. If you want to make sure that no part of their outfit is clipping in the highlights, using spot metering can actually be a good way to make sure that they are exposed if you don't mind sacrificing other elements in the environment or in the background.
I'm so confused. If I say here, it's telling me to go that way. If I point here, it's telling me to go that way. Oh, it's because I'm using center weighted metering. Oh my God. Why is this so confusing?
Depending on your subject characteristics, you may find that one metering mode will work better than another. On a grey day, for example, with a subject in monochromatic clothing, the light isn't going to be changing that much, so you can go for spot metering and not worry too much about things changing in the background. Whereas brightly dressed groups of subjects on a bright light day may be best suited to evaluative metering. Especially when you're changing angles with lots of moving subjects, evaluative metering might work best, rather than always trying to change between center weighted and spot metering mode. However, if you're including the sky in your composition and it's very bright, then you'll want to pay attention. If you shoot in an auto exposure mode or in manual exposure with auto ISO and you're using your exposure compensation dial, then often I find it's best to actually increase my exposure compensation by 0.3 to 0.7 at a stop. This means that I can slightly blow out my sky, but I can still recover it, while I'm also making sure that I'm lifting the details in the shadows of crowds of people, because we don't want to lose those details of the interesting subjects just so we have our sky. And if you like the colour in these images, you can actually pick up my Kodak film stock presets, my Fujifilm film stock presets, and my Naturally Filmic presets. And you can save by buying all 3 packs together in the 3-pack bundle, and viewers of this video can use this unique code to save an extra 20% at checkout. These are some of the best film simulation presets you can buy, and I've been using these on all the images you see in this video, on my Instagram, and on my website portfolio. So I'll drop a link in the description for you to check those out. On the flip side, to trying to prioritize the detail in your subjects, you may actually find that the detail in your subjects isn't really worth saving. And this is where you might want to use highlight priority metering. This isn't available on all cameras, but many cameras do have this. And this actually uses the brightest part of your image to measure the exposure. And what this can do is actually help you to create more interesting, high contrast images, where you would actually struggle trying to create a flat image from a very high contrast situation. Let's say we have a subject with a very hard shadow cutting across them, so we have very bright highlights on one side and very dark shadows on the other. Rather than using evaluative metering to try and get an even exposure, then lifting the shadows in post and trying to bring down the highlights, instead when we're using highlight priority metering, we can actually focus on those highlights and then allow our shadows to fall off almost completely. And this actually helps you to create something a little bit more abstract in these high contrast scenarios. And if you're someone who usually shoots on flat light days, like I always have in the UK, this can feel a little bit counterintuitive. But when you have lots of light and direct sunlight, this can be an interesting way to create different kinds of detailed images without having those super harsh shadows across your subjects.
Okay, the ground is saying 0. So I guess I'm here? Everything's starting to look a little bit blurry. Maybe I should go watch this video next. All about how to stop shooting blurry photos by increasing your aperture.